we're going, and this will be recorded, this meeting, I should say, and they will talk about the Care Coach program, which is adapting and testing an intervention for carers of people with dementia. So just to quickly say that Dr. Lizzy Boots is a senior researcher at the Maastricht Dementia Center in the Netherlands. And Junie Wester is, of course, she's a nurse and working in the Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust, and is one of the lead research nurses there. So they're going to share the presentation with the first half, I think Lizzy is covering, and the second half, Junie. And just some housekeeping briefly, as always. If you can please keep your microphone switched off during the talk, and please keep your video switched off during the talk. And ask questions, please use the chat bar in your meeting control bar. This will open a chat area on the right of your screen, and you can just put comments there, or questions, or even suggestions for the meeting. We will monitor the chat, and if there's anything urgent question you want to ask at a specific part of the talk, we can address it directly, or we will go through all the questions in the chat after the speakers have finished. So your question will hopefully be answered. If you want to ask a question in person, then please switch on your video, but keep your microphone up at the end of the talk, right at the end, and we will ask you to switch on your microphone to ask your question. But if you think your question was not answered or you want more information, then email us on this email address, and we will put this later again in the chat, so you will have this email address. And then if you have any more specific questions for the speakers, you can email us at any time. Okay, well, without further ado, I want to hand over now then to Lizzy, who's going to kick us off. So over to you, Lizzy. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you very much, Michael. And also thank you to all for listening to me live from the Netherlands. I will first share my presentation. Let's see. Here it is. Okay. Can you see my slides now?
Yeah. Yes, I can see it.
Great. People are nodding. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Of course, today we will be discussing the Care Coach program, but first I will give you some background about, on the Partner Imbalance program, which it all started with, and how we developed it and evaluated it in the Netherlands. And then we will discuss how we will adapt this program to the UK context and the further steps. I'm perfectly fine with answering questions throughout the talk if Michael sees something on the chat that you want to send me, because during the presentation I won't be able to see the chat, but Michael will, so we will get there. And if you don't understand me because of my sometimes not so great English, please let me know, then I can try to say it in another way. Well, first, a little background. We had a national study done in 2019, and it turned out that 54% of the caregivers of people with dementia were actually feeling overburdened. And last year, during the COVID and the lockdowns and everything, that actually increased to a shocking 61%. So there's really room for improvement there, and we really need to support our caregivers. And most carers in the Netherlands actually are spouses. I think it's the same in the UK. And on average, they care for their loved one 40 hours a week. So it's basically a second career that you didn't study for. The caregiver career was also actually highlighted by Professor Marjolein de Vught and Professor Frans Verheij from our Maastricht University Alzheimer Center. And this figure actually highlights the three major transitions during this caregiver career. So first you have the role adaptation phase, in which you're starting to learn what it's like to be a caregiver, and you start to take over different things and learn what it's like to care for your spouse, for instance. And in the second role enactment phase, you are the caregiver, you're already doing all these things. And in the role disengagement phase, maybe your loved one is being admitted in a nursing home or is deceased. Well, because the number of people with dementia and their caregivers is increasing in the next couple of years, of course, and in 2040 it will be tripled, actually. We are looking at different ways to still be able to provide the support, with also the big decrease of healthcare professionals that are able to give this support. And e-health might be one of the solutions. We're looking at different solutions, but this could be one of the solutions to still be able to provide support with a smaller number of healthcare professionals. And it is also a tool that could be actually implemented in the early phase, in the role enactment phase of the caregiver career, because people are sometimes more reluctant to seek support in these early phases. They try to push the support away as far as possible, as long as possible. And e-health is something that could lower the threshold to seeking help and could also be tailored to the individual. Well, because of these possible advantages, we wanted to actually create an e-health program to support caregivers during these early phases. And we first looked at the literature, because of course there's already a lot of the work done in this field. So we looked at different studies globally, and we tried to highlight the pieces or the elements that were actually effective. And we found out in our systematic review that e-health actually can improve caregiver well-being only if it contains the ingredients, multiple components, so not just information, for instance, but also video clips, assignments, stuff like that. And should also be tailored to the individual caregiver and individual situation that people are in. And it should contain a piece of interaction, so not just you alone looking at your screen or reading things, but also interaction with a coach or someone that can actually guide you through a program. Well, the next step in the development was looking at the people that actually are going to get this intervention, of course, the caregivers of people with dementia, and ask them, what do you need? What was important for you during the early phases? What did you miss? Or what would have helped you when you were in the early phases of the disease, or the early phases as in the caregiver career? And we actually found out that there is a bit of a paradox between needing and accepting help, which means that the early stage caregivers, if you know what I mean, people in the early phases of their caregiver career, mentioned that they were trying to actually postpone seeking help for as long as possible, because they didn't want to be confronted with the caregiver role or confronted with the disease and everything they might lose in the end. So they tried to postpone seeking help, professional help, for as long as possible. While the people in the later stages of the disease mentioned that they wish they had sought help earlier on, because it would have helped them with their acceptance and with actually making the lives together more easy and positive. So that was a bit of a paradox, of course. And how could we overcome this? We tried to discuss that also with the caregivers in the focus group interviews. And we asked them, okay, this is happening, and what should we do, or what can we do to reach you during the early stages so that you can receive the help that might facilitate your caregiver career? And they mentioned that it could be lifted if support or help is not focused on the disease itself, not on dementia and everything you're going to lose and everything you have to arrange in the future, but more on how can you adapt to the possible changes that are happening right now, and how can we still have a nice and a good positive life together right now? What can I change at this moment to still be able to talk to my spouse, to still be able to go to parties, or to still be able to do my job, for instance? So really a very different focus than support was back in the days, or how they see support actually. And also focus it more on the personal situation, on positive interaction, on how can we still have a good life and a good day together. And they also really wanted to look at the things that are still possible and not on the things that you're going to lose due to dementia. Well, based on all this information that the caregivers provided us, and also on the information that we got from the literature review and interviews that we did with professional experts, we created the Partner Imbalance program. It was first tested for feasibility. So we tried to look what was going well, what was going wrong, and then we adapted the program again based on actually the feedback that we got from the caregivers. And after this iterative process, actually, we created the final program, which consisted of a self-management approach, which means that the caregiver is in control. He or she is really, in control. Has the wheel. I think that's what I'm trying to say. The program starts with a personal intake with a coach. A personal coach, and that's often in the Netherlands, it's often the dementia case manager. I think in the UK that might be a bit different, but here it's the case manager or the dementia nurse or a psychologist, someone that you see after you receive the diagnosis of dementia. And after the personal intake, the caregiver and the coach together discuss what is going right at this time, what is going wrong, and what do I want to change. And based on this discussion, they select a couple of modules or themes that they want to work on during the online period. I will show the themes in a minute so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. And all these themes are actually tailored to the personal situation of the caregiver. So every team has assignments that you work on, that you try to tell your coach what is going on in your personal situation, and your coach gives you feedback on it. But I will show you a bit more on the modules in a second. It's really focused and aimed at personal goals. So it can be different and look differently for everyone. The information is the same for all caregivers, but every module is adapted to the personal situation of the caregiver. Pause this one for a second. In 2017, Partner Imbalance won the Medical Inspiration Award, which was an award for the best collaboration between researchers and end users in the Netherlands. And it was more of a public award, which means that we had to receive public votes in order to win this award. And we got a nice funding to actually further implement the program. And I wanted to show you this clip because we had to record this clip to receive the votes, but it also gives you a nice short overview of what the program actually looks like. It's in Dutch, but we subtitled it. Can you hear it? Okay.
Wij hadden best een fijn en goed leven, maar op een bepaald moment merkte ik dat mijn man vergeetachtig werd, dingen anders zag. En ik begreep op een bepaald moment dat er iets niet klopte. Ja, doe maar in de mond, dat pilletje. En toen heb ik toch een afspraak bij de huisarts gemaakt. En daar werd toch al gezegd dat het een voorloper van dementie was. En dat zet je leven toch wel op zijn kop. Ja, dat hij afhankelijk van mij is, vind ik natuurlijk moeilijk, want ik kan vaak ongeduldig worden. Ja, dan kan ik toch wel ook wel eens boos uitvallen. Wat mij toen wel geholpen heeft, is de cursus Partners in Balans te doen. Ik heb geleerd te genieten van de dingen die nog wel kunnen. Je gaat niks meer ondernemen waarvan je weet dat het niet meer lukt. Maar je kunt wel nog genieten van andere dingen. We zorgen toch dat we gewoon leuke dingen blijven doen.
Als je in het begin een diagnose dementie krijgt, dan loop je tegen een heleboel vragen en onzekerheden aan en je weet niet altijd hoe je die moet oplossen. Dus Partner in Balans, de cursus, helpt mantelzorgers of mensen met dementie om daarmee om te gaan.
Hoi, dag, ik ben Jannie. Marjolein, de Vught.
En samen met de mantelzorgers en professionals hebben we deze cursus ontwikkeld. Bij de cursus word je ook begeleid door een persoonlijke coach. En die gaat samen met de deelnemers kijken waar ze iets meer over zouden willen leren. Het blijkt dat mantelzorgers die de cursus hebben gevolgd, die voelden zich ook beter in staat om te zorgen voor hun partner of voor hun familielid. En daarbij bleek ook nog dat de kwaliteit van leven omhoog ging na het volgen van de cursus. Nou, als het publiek op ons stemt, dan kunnen wij deze cursus beschikbaar maken voor alle mantelzorgers in Nederland. Want iedereen verdient het om in balans te zijn.
Stem op de mantelzorger van vandaag en morgen.
Okay, I hope you all vote for us now. Well, you don't have to vote anymore, but maybe this gives a bit of an overview of exactly what we were trying to accomplish with partner imbalance. Okay, let me just switch my face. Okay. This was pre-COVID. You saw the coach shaking hands with the caregiver. Unfortunately, that's not possible right now. And during the COVID pandemic last year, actually, the face-to-face meeting turned out to be more often an online meeting in which people had the discussion about the teams and what people want to accomplish via Zoom or Teams, something like that. But people really appreciate that they have the coach and someone that guides them through this program and that they're not alone while doing these teams and modules. Well, in this first meeting with your coach, caregivers choose 4 online thematic modules, which all actually consist of a fixed number of elements. It always starts with a video clip in which other caregivers talk about this team, talk about how they experience this, and give tips to other caregivers how they could maybe change their situation, or small steps that could really ease the communication, for instance, at home. Then people go to the background or the psychoeducation piece, in which they get more examples, vignettes. I will show you some of them in a minute. And more information, like background information, that was also provided by us, by the professionals. And the next step is a reflective assignment in which you start to look at your own situation. How is this going at my home with my spouse or my partner or my family member? And the last step is the self-management plan, in which you start to work towards a more desired situation. And you follow these 5 steps from goal to when is my goal achieved, but I will show you them in a minute, a bit more in detail. So this is the first step. Every module consists of all these steps. And for instance, you have the acceptance module. It's about acceptance. And the first step is the video, in which caregivers give some of their information on how they accept it or are still in the process of accepting this disease and how they cope with it at home. If I have time, I will show you a video again in a minute, but I'll first let you know, see all the elements. So the second step is the background. You get some tips and information, and always some examples or vignettes about, we actually try to gather all this information and these examples during the first phase, during the interview phase. So we ask people to share their story, and if they were okay with us sharing their story, of course, anonymously, with another name, a synonym name, in the partner imbalance modules. And people were all fine with that because they felt very alone during the early stages. And now they were very happy to share their information and their experiences with other caregivers, and hope that they would give some inspiration from it. And every background piece or information piece actually ends with tips from and for other caregivers or other people in the same situation. We also gathered these tips during the interview phase, and they are very much appreciated by the caregivers that follow partner imbalance, because they're very happy to learn from other caregivers, because they also say professionals are very smart and they know a lot, but I learned the most from other people that experienced the same as me. The next step is the self-reflective assignment, in which you saw a video, you read something, but now you're going to apply it to your own situation. You're going to make some assignments, fill out some questions, and you send this to your personal coach. No one else sees this, of course. It's only between you and the personal coach. And the coach provides feedback that can help you go to the next step. This is an example question of the module balance in activities, in which you have to fill out this scale with activities that give you energy and activities that drain your energy. And this is often very insightful for people to see that maybe the right column is very full and the left column is a bit empty. And this is, of course, feed for the next step to see how could we, or food for the next step, I should say, how could we change this situation? Which small steps could we take in order to balance the scale out a bit more? Yeah, this is what I mentioned. This is the 5-step plan. Every module ends with this plan. It's the most difficult, but also the most appreciated piece of every module, in which you really look at your own situation. And based on this assignment that you made, you're trying to find out, okay, what can we do? Which small steps can we take to change our situation and make it more desirable? This can be very, very small things, like how can we still have breakfast together and have a nice conversation? Or how can we still look at our favorite TV show together without the person with dementia walking away because they cannot follow it anymore, for instance? It's really small things, but they make a big difference. This is what the step plan looks like, 5 steps. The first one is, what do I want to achieve? So you look back at your self-reflective assignment, you look at the things that you put there and the feedback you got from your coach. And this often helps you to fill out this first step. So, okay, I have, this is what I saw, this is what I read, but I think that I want to do this or this differently, because it would be very nice, for instance, if I could go out for a walk again on my own once a week. But how am I going to do that? Where should I pay attention to? Well, for instance, I need a walking club or a walking buddy. I need to leave my spouse alone. Is that possible? I should put it on a calendar. What do I need to solve? Well, that could be that you ask for someone in the environment to help you, to be there in case of an emergency, that you find a walking club or a walking buddy, that you buy the calendar. That could be also your really concrete action goal. And the 5th step is, when is my goal achieved? That's really good to also fill out, because people really get a sense of accomplishment when they see that they have also reached their goal. But the goal of Partner in Balance is not to reach all your goals, because of course that's not really possible, but it's more to learn to think a bit differently, really find out what bothers you in daily life, set goals, just think from problem, go from a shift to problems and loss more to a shift to problem solving, and think in possible solutions. And that you learn to work on these solutions and ask for help. And what the people actually reported back to us was that they were so proud of themselves that they achieved this and that they came up with these solutions themselves, of course, with help from their coach. But actually this aim at your own problem-solving skills really help people to grow in their confidence. And of course, you're not doing this alone, because if it was that easy, people would have already solved all their problems. So the coach is really necessary here to help you, to guide you through this program, and to also give you feedback on your assignments and on your step plans. And as a coach, you're not really the professional with all the knowledge. You're more a coach that is a bit laid back and just listens to the person and lets them try it out themselves and support them throughout this personal journey to really help them become more resilient and also more confident as a caregiver. So feedback from coaches really actually is more on reflection, stimulating self-direction. In this way, you can just help participants think about their own situation. What is going well? What is not going so well? What could they possibly improve? And when setting goals, you can help participants make their goals more attainable or feasible, concrete, measurable, the SMART, of course. And you can help participants gain insight in how they can solve or reduce problems themselves. And we also did a randomized controlled trial to see if partner imbalance was actually effective in increasing caregiver self-efficacy and also quality of life. And we had an RCT with 40 people in the partner imbalance condition and 40 people in the care as usual condition. And they followed the program for 8 weeks. And then we compared the two groups. And it turned out that the partner imbalance group had an increased quality of life, caregiver self-efficacy, and caregiver mastery or sense of control compared to the control condition. And we performed the process evaluation alongside the randomized controlled trial. And we saw that also the coaches had some benefits from using this program, because apparently it really deepened their contact with the caregiver, and they were more able to go to the problem, or not the problem, the real situation in a more easy way than they would normally do. And the caregiver really liked the positive approach of the program. So it was not more about everything they were going to lose, but more on how are we going to adapt our lives together with living with dementia. We also had some facilitators and barriers for actually using partner imbalance. Of course, it's a big barrier if you have no internet. So there were a few people, actually somewhat older people, that were not that familiar with the internet or didn't have internet. That was a huge barrier. But some of our coaches were very creative, and they printed out all the materials and they just did it like that. Also an option, of course. And there were a few people that said, well, I don't really need this. Maybe they were in the paradox of accepting and needing help, but that was also one of the barriers. And some of the facilitators were people that were younger of age. For instance, people that were still working, caregivers that were still employed and had no time to go to a psychologist or someone during office hours, and they were very happy to use partner imbalance in their own time. We saw a pretty high participation rate of people that we recruited and that actually wanted to participate. The participation rate was 52%. And in normal caregiver research, we found somewhere in the literature that was around 28%. So we think it would be an indicator that there is a need for some sort of intervention in the Netherlands, at least. And because we were continuously in this iterative process, we were always asking caregivers their feedback and seeing how we could improve partner imbalance. And we got back from them that they really liked the examples, the vignettes, the videos, but some of them didn't really suit their personal situations. For instance, people with young onset dementia didn't really feel that their situation was reflected in the current examples, because there were more older people or people that were no longer employed and were retired, for instance. And they said, well, it's very different if you're young and you have small children and you have a career to also maintain. So that it would really help if there was some sort of new collection of modules that was really fit to their situation. And also for frontotemporal dementia, people mentioned that it's very different for them. It's not all about memory, but it's more about behavioral problems, change in personality, for instance, so that they also would like it if the examples and the stories were more adapted to their situation. And from the professionals providing this partner imbalance program, also the question came to make collections or modules.
I think we might have lost Lizzy. Lizzy, can you still hear us? Right, we might have lost her. Let's give her a minute, maybe to join back in. If not, maybe Junie, you can go ahead then. Just to say, so a lot of the questions in the chat are already whether this is available in the UK, and Junie will address exactly those questions. And also, Joe asked if it's similar to the dementia care coach training that was done in Norfolk and Suffolk Dementia Alliance in 2013 and 14. I guess, Junie, you will cover that as well.
I can answer that now, actually, Joe. It's a really good. That's a really good question. I think the dementia care coaching program in Norfolk was primarily aimed at staff. So it was about experienced dementia care staff having extra training to coach junior colleagues. I think I'm right in that.
Great, yeah. So this is more targeted now towards the carers, not the the lay care, not the professional carers. I guess that distinction. Yeah, Joe says that's correct. Okay, I think Lizzy is coming back in a minute. Hello, Lizzy, are you there?
Okay.
Hello, are you back?
I just got kicked out of the meeting.
There we go. So yes, don't worry, we answered some questions in the chat in the meantime. Do you want to continue with your slides then?
If I still have time, I just checking the time. Okay.
It depends if you have enough time for Junie.
I do have a few more slides, but I'm not sure if I'm taking time away from Junie right now. Okay. Okay.
Well, maybe, yeah, see, maybe you can curtail it so that we can then switch to Junie. So we have time for questions afterwards, which is important.
Yeah. Just a few highlights, maybe.
Yes,
okay,
great.
Let me just get back to it. Oh, God. Don't know why this happened. Oh, I'm disabled to share my screen.
Okay, let me. Let me see if I can.
In the meantime, I can just.
Okay,
oh, I'm a co-host. Yeah. Okay, there it is. We're back, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I was just talking. I'm not sure if you got that anymore, but I was talking about the new collections that we developed because of all the feedback that we got throughout the process. So now we're actually have a few collections available within the Partner Imbalance program. A collection for dementia, for young onset dementia, for other relatives of young onset dementia, for instance, a brother, a sister, or a parent, maybe. Also for Parkinson's disease, frontotemporal dementia, and we're currently working on the collection for Huntington's disease. I'll just skip this because it's a very long story, but this was actually to highlight that during the whole process and the implementation phase, that was about the next phase in the MRC framework, or the Medical Research Council framework for the development and evaluation of complex interventions. And we actually found out that the professionals providing this intervention need a bit more support than we were currently giving. They also had some problems with their self-efficacy as an executor of a new innovation. So we're currently focusing on that to really increase their self-efficacy by actually organizing peer support meetings to discuss partner imbalance cases, sending out newsletters, and also further developing the coach training to really fit their background and their needs. So what we learned throughout this entire process, we started in 2012, is that our intervention Partner Imbalance actually fits the needs of caregivers, is effective, but it took a long time from development to implementation because of all these barriers. But actually the last year during COVID, we had a bit of a boost in the Partner Imbalance program because everybody was forced to start working online because care centers were closed or people were prohibited to start face-to-face meetings or home visits. So it actually exploded and a lot more caregivers and coaches started using Partner Imbalance. And we're very happy to also start in the UK now with the Care Coach program. Just to sum up, well, eHealth offers good possibilities for tailoring and low-level access in a time and place that fits the needs of the caregivers. Timely and positive self-management interventions can help caregivers adapt to this new role in the adaptation phase and improves their quality of life. but the wider context of the intervention needs to be taken into account from the start of actually creating these types of interventions to really aid the implementation. Well, that's about it. In the Netherlands, we're currently starting the cost effectiveness study to aid decision makers to also start reimbursing partner imbalance in the practice, clinical practice. We'll continue the development of the intervention content to accompany the caregiver along their journey in the different transition phases in the caregiver career. And of course, we will start the UK Care Coach study, which Junie will tell us about more now. Should I stop sharing my slides now?
Yes, please, if you could. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can have that information as well on our website then.
Course,
thank you very much. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for this overview. Really impressive work, and as you say, it takes a long time always to develop these. So, you know, well done getting this far. Incredible.
Thanks.
So at the moment, so the questions in the chat were mostly on the adaptation towards the UK, so it's very fitting. But if you have any other specific questions for Lizzy, please put them in the chat. We can answer them later, or you can come on online later. But now let's switch to Junie. Junie, if you're happy to start sharing your slides and talk us through the planned adaptation of this program to the UK.
Okay. Okay, I'm hoping everyone can see that.
Yes, I can see that. Thank you.
Marvelous. So hello, everyone, and thanks, Lizzy, for that great overview of partner imbalance. It's really interesting to hear that and how it developed in the Netherlands. So my name's Junie West. I help develop research in Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust. I'm based in Norwich. And as Michael said, I'm a mental health nurse by background. I'm one of the researchers with the Care Coach team, and my bit of the talk today is about the first year of the Care Coach programme, which is where I'm most involved. And we're using a method called experience-based co-design to further develop the Dutch intervention, the Dutch programme. And so we can adapt it for use in the UK. So Alison, your question was very good right at the start. So the first year of the Care Coach study, we're really looking at understanding people's lived experiences. But a bit of background. So we know, and this is very, very similar, Lizzy, to your background for developing partner imbalance in the first place. But in terms of the UK perspective, we know there are around, well, the numbers are huge, 700,000 family carers supporting the 850 people currently living with dementia in the UK. Again, we know there's lots of strains and stresses in this role. As Lizzy said, you don't apply for the job, there's no training, you find yourself in this situation, and it can put lots of strain on energy, resilience, physical health, mental well-being, family relationships. Equally, the coronavirus pandemic has placed even more stressors into that situation. And we do know that intervening early to support family carers builds personal resilience and helps people's abilities to cope. We know that family carers provide significant support for people with very limited support for themselves, but it is really important that the carers, the family members, get the right support too. So we want to help carers improve their quality of life, their mood, and their sense of being able to care well. And I think this is where partner imbalance is really, potentially really helps this. We know that this intervention can already meet some of these needs, but what we need to do is to develop it and adapt and prepare it for a UK cultural setting. And then we want to test it in a feasibility study. So we want to look at some of the implementation issues that have come up in Holland, and we want to translate that into the UK, and we want to then get it all ready together to test in a very large randomised controlled trial further down the line. So the study team is fairly huge, as you can see from this slide. The Chris Fox, who's at University of Exeter, co-leads this with Dr. Jane Cross, who's at UEA. And I've listed all of the partners, team members and collaborators who are involved in the study. In terms of Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust, we've been working quite closely with Jeff Fenwick, who is a family carer for his wife, Susie. And he's a partner on the study and has joined us as a co-researcher. But we've got lots of partners around the UK and in Amsterdam and at Maastricht. So great to be working with Lizzy to develop PIB further. Jeff's role really is about bringing his lived experience into the process. So he's going to be helping support the first year and the experience-based co-design processes. He's going to be helping us with some of the qualitative research work in the first work package of the study. And he's going to be joining other carers as well that we hope to recruit into the process of helping with recruitment, analysing and sharing our findings as we go along. So it's very participatory. And Jeff's won't be a lone perspective. We need lots of different perspectives for this. So it's a UK-wide programme of research, and it really needs to include a very diverse range of views. So Jeff's role is also very key in helping us to build links with and work with other collaborators, locally and nationally. So the first part of Care Coach, as I've said, involves adapting and preparing what we're going to call for now PIB UK, that name might change as we develop, for a UK cultural context. And it's really important that we work alongside people with lived experience. So we're talking about family carers and also friend supporters of people who are currently living with dementia at home. And we're also very keen on working alongside learned experience from clinical health professionals, so health and social care staff who are experienced in working alongside families who are living with dementia. This approach is really about including and valuing lived experiences from experts by experience. And the aim of purpose of researching in this way together is that we improve the quality and the relevance of the research. And we make sure that it fits real life, and that we make sure that it's, as an intervention, is able to be delivered in real life by our health and social care services. So there's lots of elements built into the study design that helps us to unpick that as we go along. So as Lizzy's explained, the PIB programme it comprises of two elements. We've got a health or social care professional coach, and we've got the online platform with all of the different modules. These are the first three, and they don't come in any particular order. It's about the coach and the conversation, tailoring the selection of those learning modules and reflective modules based on a person's individual experience. So it's usually an 8-week programme, but I guess it can be quite flexible, Lizzy, in people accessing different modules, and usually people select 4 modules to run over an 8-week period. But I think there's been a lot of interest in people wanting to look at all of the modules because there seems to be lots of relevance across all of them. So it's very important that we look at the content in several different ways while we're reviewing it in the UK. We want to look at what both family and friend carers think about, or how they see the module content and the vignettes and the material and the videos and the reflective exercises themselves. We also want to see that from the perspective of staff who are experienced in supporting family members. But we also want the staff to look at it from the perspective of the role of the coach. And does this mean working slightly differently to how we work now? What does that involve, and how does staff and services see taking on that quite structured role, really, in supporting carers in practice using PIB UK? So there's a lot to look at. So we want our initial objectives for the first year is really to adapt it, to learn how to translate it for the UK setting. And we're really focusing on how acceptable it is to people. So is this useful to people? How acceptable is it to people? Does it resonate with people? Do people think it may meet their needs? And that's for both carers and staff. So, for example, we want to think about what's it like to look at. So in a very practical sense, what's it like to navigate around the system? What do people see to be helpful or not? What is there? What do people see is there already that meets needs? What might be missing? What could be changed or what could be added? Loads of questions. And secondly, what do we need to think about around implementation of the system into our existing care pathways? It's very supported, this sort of strategy is very supported by the NICE guidelines, which has much more of a focus since 2018 on the need for supporting carers. But we don't know yet how it's going to fit, so we have a lot of questions around implementation. I'm just going to focus on the first objective and how we go about what approach are we going to use. So we're going to use an approach called experience-based co-design, which was originally a sort of service improvement tool developed by the Point of Care Foundation. It's very much used in service improvement contexts, but also starting to be used in research. It's supported by an online toolkit. So if you Google the Point of Care Foundation, you'll find the materials quite straightforward. And it really takes a narrative storytelling based, quite participatory action research approach to understanding lived experience. So telling a story is a very powerful and quite a natural way of accessing lived experiences. And so experience-based co-design really takes time. It's about including people, it's about building relationships, it's about enabling people to feel comfortable, both family carers and staff, and valuing viewpoints from everybody equally, as equal partners really in the process of co-reviewing and redesigning, co-designing any of the module content that people feel that needs. So it's an interesting approach to take. So we're using what's known as an accelerated version of EBCD, experience-based co-design. We're going to recruit 2 groups. So we're going to recruit family and friend carers. I'll give you a bit more information about that in a moment. We're going to recruit dementia care staff, and we're going to start off by interviewing people on a one-to-one basis. Since the onset of COVID, we've had to move all of this online. I think we originally planned to do all of these interviews face-to-face and travel around the country a lot, meeting lots of different groups, but now all of that is going to be held online, which has positives and negatives really. It enables us to reach further across the UK, I think, so it could be quite useful. But we have had to, the study start has been delayed because we've had to sort of redesign the way that we go about this. And we've worked with Jeff and we've worked with others to try and help us work out how we do this practically. So we're going to film the interviews. The video interviews are going to take place on platforms like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, depending on what people are comfortable with and can access. And we're going to use the footage from those interviews. So we're going to have about 40 interviews, and we're going to edit that footage and pick out and analyse it and pick out the most emotional touch points and make them into a short film, which we then take to workshops where we review the content of the film. So there'll be 2 separate workshops, and then there'll be a joint workshop where we work out the elements by then of which aspects of the PIB programme might need some work or some redesign. So we're going to be looking at recruiting from 3 sites across England. We are looking for family carers of people who have a recent diagnosis, and by that we mean within a year of diagnosis of dementia. And that means we'll we'll find people who are living at lots of different stages of dementia. And we'll also be looking to recruit health and social care staff who work with people living with dementia to get involved in this whole experience-based co-design process. And we've got 10 to 12 months to work our way through this process. We've got 3 areas around the country in which we'll recruit, obviously Norfolk and Suffolk, but also Nottingham Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust and Bradford District Care NHS Foundation NHS Trust. And it's really important to us that we take this opportunity with this study to recruit people from a really wide variety and diversity of backgrounds. We want to know and we want to hear from people of all ages. We want to hear from people who have different relationships, different genders, different cultural backgrounds. We want to see if there are people living with different types of dementia as well. So we're going to be looking with our partners in Nottingham and Bradford to really try and broaden our range and diversity of recruitment. Filmed interviews, there'll be online interviews individually with family carers and with staff, so about 20 of each. And they'll probably last a couple of hours, 1 to 2 hours, and that can be flexible. So we recognise that people get tired working online, but the interviews will include access to the existing partner imbalance resources and the platform, which have all been translated into English with the videos with subtitles. And there'll be time in that interview for each participant to explore and navigate around the system, have a look at the material, and to give feedback and give us their views based on their experience, to tell their story. It's an opportunity to tell their story of living with dementia or supporting others who are living with dementia. We hope that this will trigger emotional touch points, and we're very aware that this is an emotional journey for people and that we'll provide all of the necessary support for people so people can dip out of interviews and come back, and we'll take plenty of time to support our participants. But at the end, we want to know what these touch points are. We want to know through this what's important for people. So then we will generate a short film using clips from the interviews, which may go on to being used in the new PIB UK package. It's that vignette and storytelling that's so powerful that Lizzy talked about and illustrated earlier, that the platform really benefits from having embedded in it. And the workshops, it can be the same carers and staff, or it can be different carers and staff. We're just going to keep a rolling recruitment programme so people can take part in interviews and not the workshops, or the workshops and not the interviews. We'll use the film and the feedback to discuss the touch points. And these are really emotionally significant themes. So it's checking out carers' experience in the UK and what's important, what really stands out. And then the following workshops will really look at, once we've looked at themes and we've got a much more of an idea about what sorts of things we need to build into the new platform, so sort of co-produce and work together in some online events, however many that will take, to adapt the materials. And so these are the people that we're looking for to take part. I'm presuming, Michael, these slides will be made available to people at the end so people can look this up.
Yes, yeah, and there will be a link where people can look at this recording as well. Just wondering.
So I'm very mindful of the time.
Yes, because people I can see are dropping out.
Yes.
So we want to have some questions, I guess. If you could, just the main points. Thank you.
So this is our staff participants list, but as you say, we'll be putting a link to these slides. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to.
That's it. No, that was it. That was no, that's fine. That was my last slide.
But I think, yes, to lots of, well done, first of all. Thank you very much for this great overview. I guess, please do type your questions in the chat, or come, switch on your microphone and ask your question. I guess for me, the first question I guess I could ask is, so how do people get in touch with you, or how can they participate? Because people might be part of this call is there a contact email, or who should they contact basically? Oh, you're on mute, Junie.
Yeah, I've got a contact email, 2 contact emails and a telephone number that people can call, which is on the end of the slides.
Great. And then Julieta asked a question, 2 questions for Lizzy. One is about the coach. You said that there were dementia care managers. For how long have these coaches been working as care managers with carers who took part in the study?
Well, it was approximately about 8 weeks that they worked together on this program. So you have the intake session, and then 6 to 8 weeks to work on the online modules and provide feedback. And then they have an evaluation session at the end. But as Junie also mentioned, it was flexible. So if people are on holiday leave or take more time to look at the modules, then sometimes it was 12 weeks, sometimes 14 weeks. So it was a bit different.
She just follows up, so they didn't know each other before recruitment.
Most of them didn't, but some of them actually thought about caregivers that they already guided, that still could use some extra coaching, and they already knew each other, and they started the program as well.
And then her second question is on what is the care as usual involved in the Netherlands, which I guess is always the critical control condition, isn't it? Yes.
Well, it was very different from where we recruited, of course, but from the academic hospital, for instance, it was just one conversation with a psychologist, a neuropsychologist, every 6 weeks. So it was actually just one talk. Some other people that were already guided by case managers had one face-to-face meeting every 2 weeks. So it was a bit different. So we also had to control for all these different care as usual types.
Fantastic. And so Julia is saying thank you. And then Joe's question just been answered by Junie. That's very convenient. So for a question from Gabriella to Junie. Will this care coach be adapted for non-internet users in the UK too? I previously worked for Carers Voice and Carers Matters, and the service users were in a majority non-internet users.
That's a really good question, Gabriella, and I think we're all aware of sort of issues around digital exclusion. Lizzy, I don't know if that's come up for you in the Netherlands at all, because obviously it is an online platform.
Yes, it came up not that often as we thought before, because a lot of professionals were very reluctant, and they said, please don't start this, it will never work in an elderly population. But apparently that wasn't really the case. If you just ask them, quite often people can use it, or maybe just via an iPad or anything. So it's a very easy website. But still, there were a few people that really didn't want to work online, but were very interested in partner imbalance. So sometimes we guided them to another program that already existed, like a group coach session, or other people that really wanted to work with partner imbalance. Some of the coaches printed all the material and did it offline, but it's a bit more difficult, of course, to work this way, but it is possible.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, but it's also about future-proofing it, isn't it? It's more likely that people will have in the future.
It is, and it's also really a tip for the professionals to not make this decision for your client or your caregiver. Some people already think, I'm not going to ask them because they will not have internet or nothing, and then they open a very old drawer and take out the iPad. So sometimes you really have to ask it anyway.
Yeah. No, that's great. We have great comment here by Lauren, who thinks that sounds really interesting, and she's very excited to see this happening and wants to have more information on this. Maybe Junie, I want to push you a bit on the second part, because of course there is quite a significant difference between the UK and the Dutch system and how dementia care is provided in terms of the care pathways. So I just wonder, that you're going to develop all these beautiful systems, but how is it going to fit into that? Because we don't have care coaches here. It's been so many times discussed that we should have it, and it still hasn't happened. So is there any plan how to address this? If you can't answer, don't worry, it's a mean question. So I'm just trying to push you a bit.
It's a good question. It's a very good question. And I think the only way we will understand that is to ask the staff working in the services and whether or not they see that it's something that's useful, that can be incorporated into daily practice. I know that lots of staff invest time in specifically supporting family carers as well as the people accessing services. So really it's questions that we need to ask. And we've also included service level directors and commissioners in the team as well, who can help us with some of those system level questions. It's a really good question.
Because clearly you want to be implemented, not just develop it, but you want it to be used, obviously.
And Jane has added a work package into the study, the second work package, which is specifically around implementation. So it's got its own focused study to look exactly at those sorts of issues.
Right, thank you. I think it's just more comments in terms of, it's very similar to Joe's comment that many people just had one conversation actually and then don't even know the type of dementia they have. And so she would love to know if this would be available for people actively seeking more information about their own dementia. I guess this leads back to the care pathways, doesn't it? How do people find this out? I saw that Dan put our email address in it. So if you didn't have a question, couldn't answer, or want to get in touch, please email us and we can forward any emails to the speakers. And we also have recorded it, so we put the recording of the talks on our website, but we also have a YouTube channel for this. I just want to very briefly share my slide just to highlight our next speaker is Tamara Backhaus, the 24th of February. So after Christmas, and she will talk about refusals of personal care assistance in advanced dementia, the findings from the ProCare study, which is a very important topic as well. So little research very often happening more in the advanced or severe stages of dementia. So I'm really looking forward to Tamara's work, which she's finished that study. So if you put that in your diaries, or if you put again, get in touch on our email list, you will be automatically updated for this on the 24th of February, which I think is crazy that we're talking about February there, but there we are, Just to say thank you again to the speakers. That's really great. Let me just check if there's some final comments. So Russell is just making the comment that the majority of support for people living with dementia coming to the charity sectors are going to involve this sector in the planning. Absolutely. And Joe is just saying again, thank you so much for this really interesting topic. Well, and Lizzy is already answering for it. That's fantastic. Excellent. So no, thank you, Lizzy, and thank you, Junie, for really interesting presentation. I think it was really relevant for lots of people and for all the great work. And yes, I hope to see you all soon. So you're free to go, and please email us if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening and the attention.
Thank you all.